Hi everyone, I'm Dr. Peter Salerno. I'm a personality disorder specialist and a retired licensed psychotherapist. I've retired my license in order to focus more on education and writing. I also had the privilege of being featured as a personality disorder expert in the Hulu series Ted Bundy Dialogue with the Devil. So if there are any people who are interested in that type of docu-series, you can watch that on Hulu or Disney Plus. Some of you who watch my videos know that I tend to go a little bit rogue, if you will, because I challenge a lot of the popular but misleading ideas in mental health about what really causes personality disorders. Before we begin, let me ask one thing. As always, please keep the comments respectful. These topics can feel very personal and very raw. My goal here isn't to label anyone or attack anyone. It's to teach, to clarify, and to give you a deeper picture of what these disorders actually look like. Today we are going to talk about avoidant personality disorder. When people hear avoidant, they sometimes think about avoidant attachment or social anxiety. But avoidant personality disorder is neither of those. It belongs to what's called Cluster C, the anxious and fearful cluster of personality disorders. The most important characteristic that avoidant personalities lack is resilience. They get knocked down by shame or rejection, and they stay down. Not only that, they convince themselves that they are going to be shamed or ridiculed. And so, their coping strategy is to avoid occasions of this by withdrawal and isolation in order to protect what they believe is inevitable ridicule. To be diagnosed, somebody has to show a persistent pattern of social inhibition, feelings of inadequacy, and hypersensitivity to criticism. In plain language, the diagnostic criteria are as follows. They avoid jobs or roles that involve a lot of interpersonal contact, not because they don't like people, but because they are terrified of criticism. They rarely get involved with others unless they are certain of being liked or accepted. Intimate relationships are often avoided or kept shallow, not because intimacy isn't wanted or desired, but because they fear shame or ridicule. They are preoccupied, sometimes constantly, with the possibility of being criticized or rejected. In new social situations, they are visibly tense and inhibited, convinced that they will come across as inadequate or unlikable. Their view of themselves is deeply negative. They believe they are socially inept, personally unappealing, and inferior. And they avoid taking risks or trying new activities because of fear of embarrassment. This goes far beyond shyness. The entire operating system of an avoidant personality is built around fear of humiliation. We can think of it like this. When it comes to oneself, the avoidant personality thinks, I'm inferior, unappealing, and defective. When they think of others, they think they are dangerous, critical, and ready to humiliate me. They think of the world as very scary and full of ridicule, and so their coping strategy is avoidance. It's not that they don't want or desire love, friendship, or connection. In fact, many desperately want it, but the fear of shame overpowers the longing for closeness. So they keep their world very small, a small circle of friends, and often family members that they feel very safe with. Small risks, small goals. They say no to opportunities, not because they don't care, but because the thought of public failure feels catastrophic. Clinically and relationally, avoidant personalities often come off as shy, fragile, tense, and overly sensitive. They might seem like wallflowers or daydreamers. They often deflect attention, rarely talk about themselves, and are hypervigilant to any sign of disapproval. Others may respond with caretaking, pity, or patience, but over time, some get frustrated or even irritated because avoidants seem to be constantly retreating, that eventually they stop asking. And then tragically, the avoidant personality uses the withdrawal of others as proof of what they believed all along, that they are going to be rejected or disapproved of. One of the biggest points of confusion when identifying an avoidant personality is the difference between avoidant PD and social anxiety disorder. These two disorders can sort of look like one another because with avoidant personalities, they have fear, avoidance, and discomfort, and so do socially anxious people. But the motivation and the awareness are what makes these distinct conditions. With social anxiety disorder, the fear is about very specific situations. Public speaking, eating in front of others, being called on in class are some examples. But people with social anxiety actually know that their fears are irrational. They just can't switch them off. With avoidant personality disorder, the avoidance is global, not situational. It's every domain of life that involves people. And the fear is not experienced by them as irrational. It's rationalized and justified. The avoidant person really believes that the world is that cruel and rejecting of them. This is a key point in understanding all personality disorders. Anxiety disorders are ego dystonic. The person knows something is wrong inside of themselves. Personality disorders are ego syntonic. The person believes that the problem lies in the world, not in themselves. That's why avoidant PD is so persistent. The thinking feels like truth, not distortion. I'd like to comment on narcissistic personalities in this video. Because narcissistic personality disorder is one of the most talked about disorders, I'd like to mention it in relation to avoidant personality disorder, just to make some contrasts and comparisons. Narcissists don't have low self-esteem issues the way that avoidant personalities do. Research shows that a narcissist's self-esteem is indeed fragile, but it's maintained through antagonism and control of others. Avoidants, on the other hand, genuinely believe that they are unworthy. This often gets attributed to narcissism, but that is incorrect. Avoidants do not demand admiration, they actually assume rejection. That's why avoidant personalities retreat. Both are personality disorders, but their internal engine or operating system is fundamentally different. Here's where I want to challenge another misconception. Many therapists were trained to say avoidant personality must come from childhood trauma, poor parenting, or ineffective mirroring. But research, behavioral genetics, twin studies, neuroscience, shows that's not quite accurate. As behavioral geneticist Robert Plomin says, what looks like a parenting effect is often parents responding to their children's genetic differences. In other words, the temperament comes first. The environment interacts with it, but it doesn't create it from nothing. Some avoidant personalities had adversity, some didn't. The common thread is a biological vulnerability to shame, self-doubt, and withdrawal. If you want to capture the inner monologue of an avoidant personality, it sounds a lot like this. I am inadequate and I cannot tolerate rejection. People will criticize me, but I still desperately want to belong. If life gets too painful, I will just retreat into my fantasies or solo activities. Their thinking is colored by catastrophizing. If I go or if I participate, I will be humiliated beyond repair. It's also colored by overgeneralization. If one person rejected me, everybody will. I usually don't make videos personal, but here it matters. I have lived with avoidant personality traits my entire life. I remember begging to be homeschooled, not because I didn't like school, but because I was truly convinced that every day I went to school carried the risk of me being humiliated in a way that I wouldn't survive. I missed out on team activities, relationships, friendships, and other social opportunities because I had already concluded the ending: ridicule, shame, rejection. Nothing needed to happen. My brain and nervous system told me it was inevitable. For years, I sat in therapies that wanted me to revisit my parents, my past, my teachers, my quote unquote anxious attachment. Some of it was interesting, but it didn't change my life. What finally made sense was the science, that I had a temperament wired for avoidance, and that no amount of rehashing old stories was going to fix it. The only thing that I discovered helped was practicing courage, not curing fear, practicing courage. Courage is doing the thing while terrified. It's going to the event while your chest is on fire. It's writing the book, even though you know some readers are going to hate it. It's showing up on YouTube, knowing there are going to be harsh comments, and doing it anyway. Two fundamental shifts occurred in my life that made this possible. Understanding the true etiology of personality pathology through formal education and specializations in personality disorders through some of the best trainers and experts in the world. And my wife. She is the one who encouraged me to start sharing my work publicly. I resisted for years because my avoidant wiring told me that social media was a firing squad. But my wife said, Peter, you have knowledge and training that people desperately need. Don't keep it locked away because of fear. She was right, and I realized something very important. If sharing the truth helps others, then the noble thing is to do it, even if it terrifies me. Maybe especially if it terrifies me. Courage is not about feeling fearless. Courage is acting in spite of fear because something larger than fear, like truth or service or integrity, matters more. That's why I post videos like this. That's why I write books. It isn't because the fear is gone, trust me. It's because I believe helping others has to take precedence over protecting myself from criticism. Because avoidants are collaborative and don't like living the way they live their life, there is a bit more success in treating this disorder. But treatment doesn't mean endless insight into the past. It means installing the traits that are missing: resilience and courage. It means exposure. It means practicing the very behaviors your fears say are impossible. It means tolerating imperfection, learning that rejection and criticism are survivable, and proving to yourself over and over that the world is dangerous, but it's not as dangerous as your operating system insists it is. Avoidant personalities do not need to conquer fear. They need to walk with fear and act anyway. We do not choose our temperaments, but we do have choices about what we practice and who we practice being. Thank you for watching. I'm Dr. Peter Salerno. If you found this video helpful, consider reading my books, The Nature and Nurture of Narcissism and Traumatic Cognitive Dissonance, where I go deeper into the science of personality disorders. Please leave a respectful comment if this resonated. Share this video with someone who struggles with fear and withdrawal. And if you want to keep learning, my next video is going to be about dependent personality disorder. Until then, thanks for watching, and I'll hopefully see you in the next video.